Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am very excited to have Luis Hernandez as my guest, and let me tell you a little bit about Luis. Despite being born into an immigrant family with little resources in an underprivileged inner city community, Luis was the first to graduate, to go to college and get out of the hood and become a successful businessman and family man. He broke the cycle of poverty for his future generations and gives back by inspiring others to pursue their dreams and have a dream life. So he has a podcast called The Wayfinder Show, and you're all inspired to go to that podcast. Please subscribe to that, The Wayfinder Show. After building a wildly successful real estate investment empire in Baltimore during his 20s, Luis lost it all in 2008 and 2009 with the housing collapse. His kids were 1 and 3 years old at the time, and he lost his home, and they had to start all over. And they did it in Colorado, where he took a step back to learn more about business by pursuing an MBA, focusing on being a good father and husband. And he founded his boutique real estate firm in Colorado called Pioneer Group Realty. So today we're going to talk about bouncing back from major setbacks. I think, as we've just heard, he has a little experience in that. So please join me in welcoming my guest, Luis Hernandez. Luis, so excited to have you share some more of your story and some of the experience and tips that you can give our audience who may have or had or are going through some major setbacks themselves.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here, Vicki. I'm really looking forward to this.
So I always ask two really easy, quick questions. The first is, where do you call home? Do you still live in Colorado, and where?
I do. I live in Denver, Colorado now.
Oh,
Yeah,
excellent.
and what I call home, I refer to home as Central Falls, Rhode Island. Is a small square mile city in Rhode Island. That's kind of where I went to high school and such. But we did move around a lot. I've been up and down the Northeast coast. So I lived in, obviously, you heard Baltimore, lived in Boston before that, and Rhode Island, Queens, New York.
You have been around.
Yeah, but we came to Colorado about 14 years ago and been in Denver for 5 of those past years now, and we really enjoy it.
Yeah, I like Denver too.
Yeah.
So how have you stayed positive as you go through your journey with each of those different junctures? How did you stay positive? I know that probably family was a great incentive to stay positive, but talk to us about that. When you're faced with this adversity, how do you keep your head straight?
Yeah, of course. Family is definitely helps. You know, it's a little bit different based on where you are in life. As a kid, I had a great childhood. I loved it. I was very happy, go lucky, you know, and there's something about, even though you're growing up in underprivileged communities and in poverty and all that, where you're still like you're still a kid and you have fun all the time, right? Like we, I had a
Yeah.
lot of friends and we joked around a lot, just cracking jokes all the time, and we, played outdoor games, a lot of, pick up sports like basketball, handball, soccer, you name it. We just were always out playing. So that was great. And so I was always just happy go lucky. And the second time around when kind of faced tough times
Mhm.
was a little harder, right? Because then you're an adult and you have
More
responsibilities,
responsibilities.
not just for yourself, but for your
Mhm.
family. And that was a lot harder. It was a lot darker. I was definitely more depressed. I was angrier. I had a pretty negative outlook. I just, there's a saying that, there's not a solution you can't find a problem to. That was me. I I just it was a very dark time. And the way I started getting out of that was I took up long distance running.
Mhm.
I got into marathoning. My first one was in 2010. I had never really been a runner or anything. I just
Yeah.
a friend put me onto it, and I started like just going and trying to finish a marathon. And every
Mm.
day I'd get out and run a little bit, and that kind of, and I saw the progress in myself, and that kind of helped me start being positive again. There's also something about, exercise and everything that I think
Mhm.
just makes you feel good. And so that kind of started that comeback, I guess, of
Yeah.
just being positive and happy and, such.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I think, whenever you do take your mind off the problems and exercise, running especially, puts gives you time to just think on the body movement and the rhythm and empty your brain of some of the negative things, um, rather than sitting in the couch and dwelling on it, saying, can't fix this. What am I going to do? Kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the steps that you have taken to develop this community now that supports you. And I love that you talk about community because, for everybody out there, whenever you're going through this tough time, being alone is not good. And
That's
you
right.
do need a village to help you through it. And it's okay to ask for help. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, like you said, I think the natural inclination is I think there's a lot of shame and just like you don't want to be around anybody, and that's the worst thing you could do, right?
Yeah.
And it goes, and it's hard too because you're being more negative, and when you're being, oftentimes when you're like around other good positive people, they don't really want to be around negativity.
Yeah.
So it does go both ways. There's like an energy imbalance, like if you think about
Mm.
in your science class in elementary school when you were
Yes.
learning about, energy, there's the positive energy and the negative energy,
Mm-hmm.
and they repel each other kind of. So you that was I repelled a lot of folks. But what I've always done, I think yeah, community's always been very important to me. And whether it be, my friends growing up or in college or what have you. And what I tend to do is I look for community around my interests. So
Mm-hmm.
when I first started getting into real estate, I started joining real estate investment groups and then in realtor groups and brokerages and what have you. And you just
Yeah.
start to, and when I started getting into running, I started looking for running groups. And, even now I run every morning at 5 in the morning. I put together a group. I,
Wow. It's like,
so
who's
I,
ready?
yeah, but people do. I wasn't,
Yeah.
I noticed I wasn't the only one. I saw other people out there. So I'm like, and nowadays it's so easy to create community because you
Mm-hmm.
can just put a post on Facebook or any social
Yeah.
media and say, hey, here's the 5 a.m. run group. And then before you know it, people are showing up. And then before you know it, you have a group of, 5, 10,
Nice.
15 people that you get together with a few times a week and you go for runs with. And what's great about that is a lot of people, especially like at that time, if you run at that time, you're usually a pretty busy,
That's right.
high-powered person, right? Because that's the only time it means so much to us that that's the only time we can find to guarantee the run.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the people I run with, they're very successful in their careers, at home. with their spouses and their lifestyle. I mean, and then we get together, we share our thoughts for the day, our problems, all that. And by the end of that run, we feel really great,
Yeah.
because we've shared that with each other and we've helped each
Hmm.
other through it. We I
Yeah.
like to joke that we solve the world's problems
Yeah.
at 5
You.
a.m. on a run. Yeah.
I could
But
see that happening for sure.
anybody, it doesn't have to be that. Anybody could do it with
Mhm.
anything. If you have an interest in podcasts, lately I've actually been joining podcast
Yeah.
communities because it has
Hmm.
just become more important to me in my life. I recently went to the podcast movement conference, and I think you and I met through the Podmatch community, and
Yeah.
I just you look for the communities, or you can build them. If
Yeah.
there's not a good
For
one
sure.
that and it's very easy to do that nowadays, and go and be vulnerable, be authentic. And there's a superpower in that. People
Mhm.
gravitate towards it. They want to help. And then you're able to help. And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden, there's a great community that
Yeah.
that will be there for you. Yeah,
Yeah. I say that podcasting is one of my um, favorite, best way to network because I just get quality time, 30
absolutely.
minutes with excellent, wonderful people. And I feel like I'm going to school every day, several
Yeah,
times a day. I do several podcasts a day, and it's like I'm in class every day.
yeah,
And I continue to learn and expand, and I think that keeps you young.
absolutely. It's interesting. We live in an era where we can learn absolutely anything for
Yeah.
free. Right? It used to be that we had to pay. There were certain things that
Mhm.
we had to, we to get access to learning that we had to pay a ton of money or be qualified to get into a school or what have you. Now we can get on our phones and put in whatever we want to learn and learn it.
Yeah.
However, I have found that I don't learn well that way anymore. I still like to read, but I don't even know what I don't want to learn about, so I may not find the book. But I don't like it doesn't stick with me getting in front of YouTube to go and watch videos or everything. I have to, but if I have a good conversation with somebody, good
Mm.
connection, I learn so much. And
Yeah.
that's what podcast allows me to do. And I love that. And sharing those
Absolutely.
conversations with the world is great
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah,
for free.
exactly.
So what was that pivotal moment that you said, I'm going to get into real estate?
Yeah, as a little boy, I became very curious about real estate early on just because we lived in Queens, in Jackson Heights, Queens, New York, and we lived in a building. My father became the super, and the super is the person who takes care of the building, basically, fixes all the problems and all that. And I got to meet the owner of the building, and it was a gentleman. I remember he's from Long Island, and he owned a bunch of other buildings. And so over time, like, we were moving around building to building because we always got a free apartment that way. That's kind of why we did it. And and I just remember him telling me, like, this is how you do well in America, and I see this. And so I had that curiosity, but it just seems so out of reach. We never owned a home growing up. We were always moved renting, and I had to work since a very young age to help pay for rent for my household and everything. And that's just the way, like, it was growing up. And I didn't think it was wrong or anything. It just That was normal. That was my friends did that too. It was just the way of life. And then in college, I went to Boston, at Northeastern University in Boston, and I tried to buy a home, and I couldn't really afford it. And even at like the all the programs that were out there, and the most distressed neighborhoods and all that, I still couldn't get one. So then I was like, all right, we got to leave Boston, and so got a job in Baltimore and went there. And on the first day, we went and drove in and drove around, and somehow we got lost. And I don't know if you've ever been to Baltimore, but most people would not want to get lost in Baltimore. I did, and I actually enjoyed it. I was like, wow, I couldn't believe it. I got out and I'm looking at, there's blocks upon blocks that are all boarded up neighborhoods. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. This is so much opportunity. And I started researching them and seeing you can get some of these for very little amounts of money. And And I just started, saving and doing what I could and getting in it. And at first it was just I had such a limiting belief around money that's what it, Baltimore helped me overcome that because the numbers were achievable. You can buy properties for like under $10,000. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna buy one, I'm gonna fix it up, and I'm gonna become a gazillionaire. So that was the real impetus. And then I went on to do that and do many, many, dozens and dozens of homes and where we flipped. And our model became to buy those in neighborhoods and try to get them to be like the best houses in the neighborhoods to try and attract homeowners. And we would try to sell them to first time homeowners because we knew that that's also good for the community. If you get an owner occupant in there rather than an investor, they would be much more likely to look out for the neighborhood and help improve it, right? They're gonna look out for their neighbors, get to know their neighbors. They're gonna, try and start community crime watches and maybe buy other properties to improve and what have you. So home ownership is a really good thing for those kind of neighborhoods. And that was always my goal, you know.
Yeah. I saw that whenever I was living in Pittsburgh. I grew up in a suburb of Pittsburgh, but in the downtown area near the stadium and and across the river from the downtown business section, the environment was just as you said, you wouldn't want to be walking around at night if you couldn't. But there was such opportunity, and in the renaissance of Pittsburgh, when the steel mills closed, you saw people take advantage of that. And now, it's some of the nicest areas because it's so convenient to all of the amenities that the city has to offer. And the houses are not run down. They're nice new kind of places. And so people took advantage of that. And, in Atlanta here, I see that all the time as well,
Yeah.
where, especially now where flipping became, a thing, thanks to HGTV and other things,
Yeah.
that more people venture into it.
That's right.
So whenever people are out there and they're saying, well, Luis, this sounds like something that I maybe like to do. So, but I don't know, you know, um, how I should get into this. How do I buy or sell the home, the property, if you will? How do I know what I should go for? So, what do you do in terms of helping them in those decision processes?
Yeah. Really, buying and selling are two different things. And even within each of those are there's a lot of different strategies based on your circumstances and, your goals and what have you. Let's just talk about if you want to buy your first home, because I think that's where everything starts. I think that is one thing that almost anybody, if they really want to do it, can do in America, that is achievable to help you start building some wealth. Okay. And one of my favorite strategies is to buy a home with what's called a FHA loan. And an FHA loan allows you to buy a home with 3.5% down. So I think the median in America now is around 400,000. So you can buy a house with a little, what would that be? About $14,000, which
Mm-hmm.
to a lot of people, that's still a lot of money, but there are ways to get there. And in many
Right.
programs, there are many programs in a lot of cities and such that will also help you even close that gap, or you can get the seller to maybe help pay some of that. So there's a lot of different strategies, and your credit doesn't have to be perfect. They know first time home buying is the hardest, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
big challenge. Now, if I were a 20-year-old all over again, I'm looking to buy my first property. Here's the strategy I would do. I would look for a quadplex. A quadplex is a 4-unit house. Okay. And I would look to I mean, 4 apartments basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, because from 1 to 4, the government treats it the same way. The loan programs treat it the same way. They're all considered residential property, and you can use that
Mm-hmm.
FHA loan with 3.5% down for any FHA for anything that's residential. So I would look for a quadplex. Okay. And the other great thing about that is you can use 75% of the income on that quadplex towards buying that property. So even if you don't have all the money to, if it's $1 million property, you're not approved for $1 million, you can get some of that income from that, from the leases there. And then what I would do is I would take one room if I'm single, or even if it's just like my girlfriend and I before we got married, or if we just got married before we had kids, I would probably live in that one room within that apartment. Let's say it's 4 2-bedroom apartments. I'd rent 3 of them out. I'd live in one, and then I would rent the other one out. This is just me. This isn't for everybody. Okay. And I would try to have that property pay for all of the mortgage and all of the housing costs. Okay. So that way I don't have a housing expense anymore. What's the biggest expense we have in our lives? It's usually housing. So if you can eliminate that, if somebody else is paying for that for you, then what kind of advantage do you have at that point, right? And oftentimes, if you do it right and in certain markets, right? Like I know Atlanta is a very good market for this. A lot of people do this and they actually cash flow. They actually make money. So their mortgage is paid off, all of their housing expenses are paid off, and they still make a surplus income, which is really nice. Now, all you have to do is live there for 1 year and 1 day, and then you can get out and you can rent that room again and the whole apartment, and you can use all the income from that building towards buying. You can do that again, or you can buy your dream house or whatever it may be, if you don't want roommates or be there. But that's what I would do. And then all of a sudden you have an asset that will appreciate over time. You're going to have income from it, and you're well on your way. And I know people who do this 4 or 5 times, before they turn 30, and they're all set. Then all of a sudden, if they don't like their job, they can just leave. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I would do if I were starting all over again right now, towards buying a house to go.
So my cousin, when his son was going to college in South Georgia, he did that. He got a 4 apartment home for his son to be in one. So his son lived in one, and then they rented to 3 other college students. And he did that for 4 years. And, he basically helped pay for his kids' college in addition to the mortgage. Because of the time, and, I don't even know if he still has that building, but he may have just had kept his son to get that as an additional income for him. But, that's a great way for kids and parents to figure out, the whole college situation, because room and board is pricey.
Absolutely.
So
many great wealth, a lot of great wealth in America has been built this way. There's a gentleman named Sam Zell. He passed away a few years ago, but he was one of the greatest investors of all time. He wrote a great book called I think it might Being Too Subtle. You can read about it. But he went on to become the greatest real estate investor. He owns property, or his company now does, and he started by doing this. He bought a property when he went to undergrad at University of Michigan, and he just rented it out to his fraternity brothers, and it paid for it. And then he just bought more of those. And from that, he went on to amass an incredible portfolio. I mean, even in Denver, he owns his company owns a ton of properties, both multifamily, office, and retail. I mean, it's incredible.
And I know some other folks that do what you do, I've talked with, and one of the things that I think holds back some people from doing this is they say, well, I don't want to be a landlord or have to fix things. But, there are people that you hire to do that. And that just comes out of the monthly amount you're getting. So it really kind of takes away some of the arguments, I guess, for doing that.
That's right. Yeah, they're called property managers, and now when I look at assets, that's what I look. Could I attract a level property manager? That's almost my requisite, because I don't like being a landlord. I have too much of a bleeding heart. But so yeah, I agree. I think that don't create a problem, that there may be a solution to.
So when we're thinking about, bouncing back from the major setbacks in life, for a final question, why is it so important to have routines and habits in place?
Yeah. I think routines and habits are kind of like work a lot like compound interest. Okay, so if
Yeah.
you think about compound interest, right, you're just putting away a couple pennies every time. If you're smart, you make some. You might not have a lot left over, but you put away a couple pennies in the bank, and they don't really do much. But over time, that starts to grow and grow and grow, and before you know it, you have some wealth. And I think routines and habits are the equivalent of that, but
Mm,
for personal development, okay, for health, for just leadership, whatever it
mhm,
may be. If you do a little, you develop a routine, not just like you do with brushing your teeth. You brush your teeth every day, you're gonna have great teeth. You don't have to worry about having all
yeah.
kinds of surgery, right? You brush and you don't even think about it. Well, what if you do 10 push-ups a day as well? You know,
Mhm,
what if you say gratitude every morning when you start the day?
yeah.
Before you know, you got a really great positive mindset.
Mhm,
Just because you start your day off being grateful for something, you know.
mhm,
Same goes for like visualization or affirmations or whatever. You want something so bad, you start to create visualizations for it. It can be in your head or concretely with like a dream board or something.
right,
And then
right.
before you know it, your mind starts to work towards how to do it, even if you don't know how at the time. And every day you're doing a little bit something more to get to there. So in personal health, again, 10 push-ups a day, and you'll be
Mhm,
amazed at just how fit you are just by doing that little tiny bit, you know.
mhm.
So
Awesome.
yeah, so I think they're very important.
Well, we could probably have another episode just to talk about some of the other aspects of the real estate portion of what you're doing, in
Yeah.
addition to what we talked about with the getting back or bouncing back from the major setbacks in life. We will have them. You can't really get rid of them. They will happen, and it's just how do you react to it? How do you bounce back? So I'm going to
Yeah, there are
share my,
opportunities to learn.
yeah, for
Sorry.
sure, every
Yeah.
day, every day.
Yeah.
If you all are thinking, well, I just need to talk to you a little bit more, Luis, I'm going to share his contact information as I always do. If you're just listening, you should have been taking notes all along, but everything will be on my show notes in my YouTube channel, Vicki Noethling. So please subscribe, as well as my findyourleadershipconfidence.com website. So his website is wayfindershow.com. Again, wayfindershow.com. On Facebook, you can find him by just searching his name, Luis Hernandez. On LinkedIn, it is Louis Hernandez. That's Lui Hernandez. And Twitter, same thing, Louis Hernandez RE. And then Instagram is _Louis Hernandez. And again, that podcast that you should be subscribing to so you can get daily input information from Louis. It's the Wayfinder Show podcast, the Wayfinder Show podcast. I'm going to turn it over to Louis to talk to you about what his call to action is for you today.
Yeah, thank you, Vicky. It's been a real joy to be here. Wayfinder Show was something we started in February 20th of 2023 to help inspire others to level up in some area of their life. So we look at all the different pillars of life from
Mm,
relationships, spirituality, health, and such. And we talk to people either about their journey of how they've improved it or just subject matter experts in something and within there that we can improve on. And so we come out every Tuesday and every Friday.
awesome.
We're on all of the different we only do audio, but we're on YouTube and Spotify and everything. We will come out with a video at some point. We do record them, but for now we've only been doing audio. And we also have a newsletter as well that you can subscribe to,
So,
and that'll give you a preview of what's coming up for the week. Um, and that's it. And if anybody wants to talk about real estate, you can also go to my real estate website. It's called Pioneer Group Realty, and it's at pioneergrouprealty.com. And there's a button there where you can subscribe. You can schedule a 15-minute consult with me for free, and we can just figure out your strategy. It doesn't really matter where you are. I can help you and connect you with the right person to help you with whatever you want to do.
Awesome. Well, Luis, it's been just a pleasure chatting with you, and definitely have to do it again to talk more realty. It's always good to help people understand that way to have passive income and be able to increase your financial freedom. So thanks so much for being a great guest.
Thank you.
As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.